morning. Thanksgiving Day in this troubled year has come and gone. I hope you were able to celebrate as best you could and with those whom you could. It was a time to appreciate those for which you can still be grateful. With thankfulness in mind, we on the worship committee took time to appreciate the many ways that our congregation offers people an opportunity to gather around common interests and goals and find fulfillment and companionship. We plan to focus on some of our small group ministry groups at various times throughout the year. Today is the first of those. We'll be focusing on Walking Outdoors 1 for lovers of the outdoors and walking who would like to participate in moderate hikes at local parks and woody areas. Jackie Stimpert is the leader. Another walking group is being formed if there's enough interest. And this year, Susan Patterson formed a nature journaling group, which is currently meeting virtually. In today's service, you will see images of nature through the eyes of fellow congregants as they got themselves up and out on a weekend to commune with the natural world and each other, and at the same time get some healthy exercise. You will hear reflections on how the activity feeds the soul as well as the body, and you may be motivated to try it yourself. Welcome to today's worship.
I light our chalice today in honor of the journey, the wanderings, the meanderings, the purposeful and dilly-dallying walks that each of us take in our lifetimes. The times we've hurried because of rain or schedule, the afternoons we've kicked stones down the path. We are all this on a journey. To the journey. As we enter the month of December, we get closer and closer to the time when the days stop getting shorter each morning, to a turn in the earth's path when the days begin once again to get longer. There have been many ways, some ancient, some not so, that human beings have created rituals to mark these longer, often cold nights, and to remind ourselves that the time is coming when the sun, ever so slightly, will begin to gain strength again in our daily lives. Stonehenge was created to help us mark this solar calendar. An ancient site of ritual, Stonehenge demonstrates to us that the sun does come back to full strength every year in a predictable way. We know this because other humans, ancient humans, marked this truth with giant stones. Our Christian friends are entering the time of Advent, a word based in the Latin word adventus. Adventus means more than simply to arrive. It is a complex word capable of more poetry than a simple period of waiting. It can also mean to develop, to come into, to arrive. The first candle symbolizes hope, and is called by some the prophet's candle. The prophets of the Old Testament, especially Isaiah, waited in hope for the Messiah's arrival. The purple color symbolizes royalty, repentance, and fasting. Today, we also light the first candle of our pagan wreath, the spirit of air. Place of the rising sun, birth and rebirth, the winds that bring new beginnings, the winds that bring about clarity, the breath of life, the place of enlightenment and illumination, a new day, a new cycle, open horizons, the place of being mindful, the place where dreams take action. We call upon the guardian of the air. We call upon the winged ones, the great eagle and the hawk, the condor and the vulture. Teach us to fly wing to wing with the Great Spirit. We call upon the wisdom of the great owl. Spirit keepers, energies of the East, join us. Assist us this day. Be here now.
Please join us in our Unison Reading. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion, without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us, eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, some place where we can be free.
I walk the unfrequented road with open eye and ear. I watch a field of farmer load the bounty of the year. I filch the fruit of no one's toil, no trespasser am I, and yet I reap from every soil and from the boundless sky. I gather where I did not sow, and bind the mystic sheaf. The amber ere the rivers flow, the rustle of the leaf. A beauty springtime never knew haunts all the quiet ways, and sweeter shines the landscape through its veil of autumn haze. I face the hills, the streams, the wood, and feel with all akin. My heart expands their fortitude, and peace and joy flow in.
As I was preparing for this service, I came across an article in the New York Times, Expressway in Nairobi Endangers Iconic Tree. Many of you who are familiar with Cleveland history, specifically in the Heights area, will recall a similar threat in the 1950s, an expressway that would have, among other things, gone right through the Shaker Lakes and what is now the Shaker Nature Center. That was averted. Nairobi may not be so fortunate. In Kenya, fig trees have a place in a community's origins and religious beliefs. This particular fig tree is 4 stories high and almost a century old. Its arched branches form a giant canopy. It has served as a landmark for generations of Kenyans in a bustling commercial neighborhood of Nairobi, the capital. It stands in Uhuru Park, an iconic downtown swath of green. Not all trees have the same status, said an elder in the Kikuyu tribe, which regards fig trees as the house of God. The park was saved from bulldozers in the 1980s by a Kenyan Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Many are resigned to its removal this time for the China-funded project, but hope they will be allowed to conduct a ritual so that they can bring peace and harmony to all those who will one day drive by on the expressway. But for the purposes of this service, I was also struck by these facts. In a city with shrinking green spaces, Nairobi residents are concerned that the expressway will impact biodiversity. With almost 5 million people, Nairobi has only 2 urban forests and 2 nature reserves left. Public parks, gardens, and playgrounds are all shrinking because of expanding development. This brought to mind the wisdom of our forefathers and mothers in creating the emerald necklace of diverse parklands surrounding Cuyahoga County communities. These are in addition to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park and smaller venues such as Holden Arboretum, our wonderful Lake Erie, and even continuing development of trails along the Cuyahoga River. They offer a rich palette of natural areas for our enjoyment and enrichment. And you will see a vast array of choices for our hardy bands of UU hikers. P.S. A few days after writing this, I Googled Century Fig Tree in Nairobi and found that pressure from environmental and other groups won the day, and Kenya's president has issued a decree to save it. Hooray for activism!
I will get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth.
In as many places as possible. In as many places as possible. In as many places as possible.
I will get my feet down to the earth. The earth I tread on is not undead mass. It is a body, it is a body, as a spirit, as a spirit. It is organic and fluid, and the influence of organic and to whatever particle of the spirit is in fluid. I will get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet down to the earth. I will get my feet down to the earth. I'll get my feet as many places as I can. I'll get my feet as many places as possible. Get my feet as many places as I can. I'll get my feet down to the earth.
Please join us in our Unison Reading. What can I say that I have not said before? So I'll say it again. The leaf has a song in it. Stone is the face of patience.
Inside the river, there is an unfinished story, and you are somewhere in it, and it will never end until it ends.
Take your busy heart to the Art Museum and the Chamber of Commerce, but take it also to the forest.
The song you heard singing in the leaf when you were a child is singing still.
I am of years lived, so far 74, and the leaf is still singing.
In planning the service, a call went out to members of the two groups for images of their activities. Claire Brugnoletti sent a lovely picture of cosmos and zinnias blowing in the wind from Holden Arboretum, and another from Lakeview Cemetery. Claire said, "I went there on the anniversary of my mother's birthday. I saw the beautiful orange zinnias with two monarch butterflies, which made me think of my mother and her twin sister Dorothy." And from Shaker Lakes, she sent this heron with dinner. Walking the lower lake, I have seen that same heron a number of times on a tree branch or a log, still looking for fish. In addition to pictures from group walks, some of the images were from Debbie Wright's own library of her adventures in natural areas in Cuyahoga and nearby counties since moving to Cleveland 5 years ago. Debbie and I met to review all the pictures and talk about the where and what of each. To round out our exploration of nature-based activities, we chose some of Debbie's to show as well, because the groups may choose to go there at some of them at a later time. First, here are the hikers themselves. The first shows them in the old arcade, part of a holiday excursion to downtown Cleveland. Here they are in University Circle near the Art Museum. And here is the intrepid band on a wet day in the flats at the north end of the Centennial Trail along what's called the Old Cuyahoga. The river was straightened for maritime traffic to enter the lake. I can attest from a boat trip sponsored by the Metro Parks that the Old Cuyahoga is a fascinating and little-known part of Cleveland history. Let's go south for a bit. Here is a lock on the Portage Hike and Bike Trail, and two views of a working railroad bridge on the Towpath Trail south of Akron. And these scenes from a glorious fall in northeastern Ohio are from Chapin Forest in Lake County and our North Chagrin Reservation. Art in nature can be natural or man-made, as in these examples. A log returning to nature. A rock in shades of gray, brown, and green moss is the result of softer materials washing out over time. They could rival anything in an art museum. They were found in Liberty Park in Twinsburg and Ledges Park in the Akron system. Even the burl on this tree, the result of nature's way of healing a wound, presents a comical facial sculpture. This one is a combination discovered in the Viaduct Park in the Bedford Reservation. The face with a green lichen nose and a swashbuckling hat was augmented by a painted eye. Some call it graffiti or maybe artistic license. And here are true interactions between humans and nature. First, an evocative face carved into a tree trunk. These gorgeous praying hands were carved by an indigenous artist in Silver Lake near Kent, near the end of the Portage Trail and Bike Trail. Tree roots are less colorful sort of art, but evoke countless anthropomorphic images. They can, of course, be found in any forest, but these images are from Kendall in the Akron system and Hocking Hills State Park, a little farther away in southeastern Ohio. This one is holding on for dear life to the hillside from which it will eventually tear away. And this little family shows evidence of years and years of assault when the seemingly calm river nearby becomes high and angry, creating the floodplain in which they sit. This one is locked in a desperate struggle with the rock face for survival, while this little fellow looks like he's trying to run away. All that in addition to the profound implications of roots in our lives, our heritage, where we grew up, education and religious upbringing, our struggles, and eventual tearing away from this life. As we sing in the spirit of life, roots hold me close, wings set me free. Let's move away from photographs for a moment and consider two of Debbie's examples from the Visual Nature Journaling Group. This group offers the opportunity to experience nature in a different way. As Susan Patterson writes in the group description, what can we learn about growth from a wildflower? What can we learn about relationships from watching flocks of geese on a pond? How often have you seen an interesting piece of nature, noted its beauty, and then walked right on by? Keeping a visual nature journal forces us to look more closely at the things we encounter, observing their structure, habits, and life cycles. This group fosters deep connections with the natural world and group discussion about our experiences and insights. As we near the end of the journey, we can't be in the woods without a waterfall or two. These typical small streams are in Westwood Park in Geauga County. And we can't leave without water. Winter. We can't leave without winter now upon us, almost. These are from the magnificent Hocking Hills State Park. And back in Cleveland, one of our resident deer in the snow, and an iconic view along the old Cuyahoga. Final words. The world of nature is not a world apart. It is a part of our life. Whether in our backyard, a hike in a metro park, or the Appalachian Trail, we are entwined in the same world.
Each week we come together as a people. Together we share stories, love, aspirations. We also share our bounty in ways that express our religious, Unitarian, Universalist values. May this important ritual of sharing abundance remind us that making our world better is a task best shared.
So good morning, and happy holidays, everyone. I hope this is catching you in the midst of a meaningful celebration this year, despite all of the constraints. And despite many of those constraints, I'm actually coming to you all from South Florida, where I've had to travel this year, despite all the crazy stuff going on around us. Being back here, this is where I grew up. So where home was for most of my young life, has had me thinking about how Florida really shaped how I feel about nature. And that allows me to tell without a doubt my most Florida story I really have about growing up here and how the natural world looks differently when you live in this part of the global ecosystem. So the story goes that after my family had moved to South Florida for, it wasn't even quite 2 years, we moved to what was, at that time a newly built part of the state, much further west from the coastline than, many tourists would go. This was actually the city of Parkland, Florida, which, of course, became notable in later years because of the school shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Now, mind you, Florida, especially that part of Florida, is basically a paved-over swamp. I mean, we're talking about definitely the Everglades just pushed back a little bit. And that was proven by our moving into this house that was right on a canal that was full of alligators and snakes and fish and birds of every type. Now, I was pretty young when we moved, so I would have been sort of spirit play aged at this point. And in our new house, there was 2 floors. I was in the upstairs. My parents' bedroom was downstairs. So I was on my own and had gone to sleep on a night, again, not too long after we had moved in. And I woke up in the middle of the night, as you do. I had to go to the bathroom or something. So I wandered out of my room, bleary-eyed and unsure of the light. And I went into the restroom and I lifted the lid on the toilet. And there in the toilet bowl was a gigantic brown toad. Now this is where the nature situation of Florida comes into play, because these toads are famous in Florida. They are actually cane toads that are not native to the state. They were brought here by sugarcane planters in the early 20th century to take care of insects, basically. And now they're everywhere in the state, and they're notorious for having this poisonous secretion in their neck that if a dog or a cat sort of bites at them or whatnot, it can actually harm the animal. So if you are 6 years old and in a house that isn't, too familiar to you yet, and you really don't have the internal resources or the external resources to deal with the toad in your toilet, what do? Well, you go downstairs to your parents' bedroom and you wake them up, because that seems like information they should have. Mom, Dad, there's a frog in the toilet upstairs. This is exactly what I said. Now, my parents did something that at the time seemed scandalous and unfair to me. They told me that I was dreaming. You know how parents do that. It's kind of remarkable that we leave it so that adults are always allowed to just tell children what's going on in their own heads, what's going on in the world. But they were tired and annoyed, and I understand now, where they were coming from. Know the easiest explanation in front of them, but I really persisted with them. No, you don't understand. There's really, you've got to come and see this. So my mom got out of bed to walk me back upstairs. She could show me that I was dreaming or imagining things, and this was going to be fine because, of course, what an absurd idea. Frogs shouldn't be able to get in your toilet. My dad hadn't come upstairs with us to the bathroom, but he appeared only a few seconds after we arrived, because my mom screamed so loud when she got into the bathroom that he leapt out of bed and bounded up the stairs. I was right, in fact, and there was just enough time for my dad to see this gigantic toad scurry back down the bowl into the plumbing. So at that point, I was left with two feelings. One was totally vindicated, because obviously I had not been lying. The other was that there was no way on earth I was sitting on this toilet. That just was never going to happen. From this story, I learned some valuable lessons that have really stuck with me over the years. First, unless the issue is whether or not somebody has taken a cookie or a piece of candy they weren't supposed to have, generally speaking, you should believe 7-year-olds, because they usually are not lying. And even if they're trying to communicate something that they don't understand, it's usually coming from a very truthful place. Second, every single time that you or I have ever used modern plumbing in a clean bathroom, that is a miracle for which we should all be eternally grateful. Because I had the luxury of knowing that a frog in my toilet was not normal. Where I can guarantee before modern plumbing, that wasn't so unusual. The final lesson is the most important one, though, and it really bears on the subject of today's worship, which is our communion with nature. And that lesson is that, sometimes the interdependent web comes to you. And we should be just as attentive and just as sensitive to nature when we see it invading our space, because it's a reminder that the wider world is always with us. Whether that's in the extreme form of a toad in your toilet, or if it's in the more ordinary version of, let's say, a moth in your house, or the mouse in your kitchen, or the chipmunk in your garden, whatever it happens to be, we should all remember that nature does not ask for permission. Whatever walls and barriers we make to it, nature will always win in the long run. So we should not only make our peace with it, but also see that imposition really as the blessing that it is, because it reminds us of our place in this extraordinarily great web of life. Obviously, I don't wish frogs in any of your toilets in this process, but at the same time, there really is something important about realizing that confrontation between the thing that seems like it's supposed to be outside versus the things that are supposed to be inside our safe worlds, that's an illusion, because the world is always with us.
I extinguish our chalice today with a note of gratitude. Thank you to the many contributors in the service for the photos, the wise words, the collaboration involved. Ours is a faith where we believe in the interdependency of all beings, and a service like the one you just witnessed is a good example of that. Go forth from our time together with gratitude for those who are sharing this amazing, sometimes difficult, sacred journey with you.